Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I am also a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over why a lot of folks might be feeling like modern dating is so hard for both male and female. And today, we're going to focus on why it's so hard for men. Okay. And obviously, I do want to say I'm not speaking from personal experience. Obviously, I am not a man. And, so a lot of this is going to be based on research that I'm kind of looking into. And I also want to let you guys know, be mindful of some of the research in general. Research evolves as well. I have seen research that sometimes contradict one another. So I'm not saying this is a one size fits all, absolutely not. Again, all the research is going to be in the description box, but I know sometimes with the research that I look at, it's only accessible to people who are either in a doctoral program or affiliated with a institution, university, whatever. And I didn't realize a lot of the research that I'm looking at, you guys can't access it. And I apologize for that. I don't know how to make it more accessible. So I'm going to try and use points that are a little bit more accessible, but it's hard because I feel like some of the good research is not accessible to everybody. And usually it's behind a paywall or if you're in a program. So I did want to put that out there because a lot of people are asking about that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make the front long like this, but I keep getting the same question over and over. So I did want to let you know, I'm going to try and be aware of that. Some of this research is probably not accessible, but I tried my best. So we're going to talk about why is modern dating so hard for men, okay? The very first one is something that I want to call more like asymmetric type of competition. Placeholder word. But basically, while both genders, male and female, tend to pursue more desirable partners, what we've seen is men initiate more than women. So men are initiating more contact in general. And so it's often that men are the ones continuously pursuing, and we notice that men are actually less selective. So ladies might be more selective while also not initiating as much. And so in that way, we can see that these women are actually receiving more messages overall because men are less selective and men are initiating more, which makes the competition for men more intense because of that. Does that make sense? And there was a study that was done in 2018. This was about online dating patterns. So of course that doesn't reflect to everyone's relationship situation, but we're seeing that online dating patterns actually reveal that both men and women tend to pursue partners that I guess they perceive, or that was perceived based on a couple of variables, about 25% more desirable than they perceive themselves, which is very interesting. That creates that asymmetry that we're kind of talking about, right? The next one is similar to what I kind of covered, but in a little bit more detail. This study was 2016, the one that we're about to touch on, is actually like a response imbalance, I guess is the best way to put it. We actually see that, as we'd mentioned, in this particular research, we found that men actually initiate approximately 79 to 80% of conversations on these dating apps, but also we can see that also in person, we didn't get the percentage on that one, but in general, men do initiate conversations more, even in long-term relationships. A lot of you guys, maybe you guys are in long-term relationships and you can see that your partner, if she's female, she's probably not as, I don't want to say talkative, but she doesn't initiate conversations as often. And I know this because I'm in a long-term relationship with a man. And I don't even do it on purpose, but we both are having that dynamic where most of the time he's initiating the conversations, especially when we're together in person. Because over text, it's a little different because it's just basic stuff. But when we're going on a date or hanging out or whatever we're doing, he's usually the one telling me about all the stuff that's going on in his day. I like to just listen. I don't know if it's the same thing, but I do notice that he is usually the one that's making some of those, I guess, initiating moves. And I understand that can be frustrating. And I obviously try to do it too. But I do notice between us, he definitely has higher in that percentage. And I imagine most relationships are like that. That's not lost on me. And so although based on this research, this one was more about dating apps, we can see that those 79% of conversations that were initiated by men, only around half of those messages actually got a reply. And so although it was a reciprocated conversation, what ends up happening is there's a burden for a lot of in modern dating, that men actually feel that frequent rejection, and that can be emotionally taxing. And so it can also make you feel a little bit negative towards wanting to date in general, if that makes sense. And I have some patients, obviously I'm not going to go into details about them. Everything between me and my patients are confidential, but I notice a lot of the men who are wanting to date, but they're also a little bit uncomfortable about that rejection. They feel a little bit drawn away from connecting with their female counterparts because they do feel like the rejection is so often. Some of them might even feel like it's more of a numbers game. And so they get really confused. It's almost like just throwing darts in the dark. Some of them describe it something like that. And I can understand that. Of course, I'm not in that position, but I did want to let you guys know I empathize and understand what you're talking about. It's not lost on me, okay? I just want to let you know. The next one I thought was kind of interesting. This one was, I think a lot of people know this, but I just found the number so interesting. I guess I'll call it like economical signaling. Again, placeholder word, where we actually see that more educated folks and people who earn more are correlated with receiving greater romantic interest. I think a lot of people know this, but this one was like across 24 countries where it actually suggests based on that, right? So if you're more educated and you have a higher, more earning potential or whatever it is, it's correlated with receiving more or greater romantic interest from the opposite partner. And so we can take that understanding and correlate that. Doesn't that also suggest that men with a lower economical or educational status may be overlooked because of that particular aspect? Again, this particular one, I might be stretching the research a little bit, but that's kind of what I took it as. If men who are more educated and earning more are correlated with receiving greater emotional interest, doesn't that mean that men who are lower economical or educational status may be overlooked simply because of that aspect? Now that might be drawing it a little bit too much of a stretch, but still that's what I'm kind of seeing. And so this actually might reinforce that perceived inadequacy during partner selection in general. So for men, they may feel like they may give up on relationships, particularly for this variable. And I see this common, right? And 24 countries is not a small sample size. So I did find that pretty interesting. This one, the next study was not an American study, and I'm American, so I tend to look at more studies in America. This one was China, I think, yes, China. Socioeconomical impact. A lot of times we're seeing that ladies tend to be focused on a lot more different variables to their potential male counterpart comparison, where men are solely focused on the female's attributes. So they're looking at how this man operates in social situations, economical settings, how they are in terms of their potential connections with other people. I wanted to say business connections, but that might not necessarily be it. But you might see that too, where you're trying to see how he communicates with other men of a similar status or whatever they perceive. Another one that I kind of drew this, again, I'm kind of stretching or kind of understanding the research and applying it to what I'm seeing. I also see more commonly that women tend to ask their friends more about their potential partner, like they're vetting it through like different channels, which I don't think is healthy, by the way. I don't think that's the best. It might be healthy, but I think it also cuts off a lot of potential. And I'll make a video on that in a separate video, but I do notice that's common. So this is kind of what the research is showing us, right? There's more variables for men to kind of go through to connect with this woman, whereas men, it's a little bit, they're a little less selective based on just focusing on the female's attributes, right? Sorry if that was a bit of a mouthful, but I'm kind of making sense of this as well as we're just chatting here. The next one is social isolation. I think this is important as to why modern dating is hard for men. Often we're seeing that men might maintain emotional compartmentalized relationships. They may have interactions with other men that are activity based, which is not necessarily unhealthy. We saw that in a lot of research. This one is like 2018, but still we see it all the time, where the pattern between their connections might actually inhibit a little bit of that emotional support network. And what ends up happening because of this, men tend to place a disproportionate emotional expectation on romantic relationships. This is more common with long-term relationships. This is not necessarily dating, right? Men don't do this when they're just dating people. I don't see this. Maybe I'm wrong, but when I'm practicing, I rarely see a man be upset because their girlfriend's not opening up to them. Like I've barely seen that, okay? But what I mean is, like, in a long-term relationship, after many years of being together, let's say she wants to exit the relationship, that happens, right? He might feel more at loss because he doesn't have as many supports emotionally to help him and support him. Whereas she might be able to connect with other friends. She might be able to talk and say, hey, like, do you know anybody I could date? And so she's able to move on and move past that relationship, whereas he has more compartmentalized social supports and more social isolation, which is why modern dating in general can be very difficult, because as our situation is, breakups are more common than ever, as far as I remember, I'm pretty sure the number is going up. My recollection's not so great, but I do remember that. I remember seeing that. And this can be challenging because that makes divorce and breakups even more daunting for men because it can hurt a lot, right? Especially if you don't have those supports. The next one is something that I just notice. So this one is not necessarily research-based, but I really wanted to say this because I see it so much in session. It's very hard to ignore. A lot of men are literally unsure of how to behave, like ambiguity. Right? They just don't know. Am I supposed to be assertive? Am I supposed to be sensitive? Am I supposed to take the lead, or am I supposed to wait for signals? Like, the rules seem really unclear. Again, I didn't really look for research on this one. There might be, but I wasn't looking because I was just like, I need to put this point in, but I am aware that this could be a bias based on my particular caseload. A lot of my patients are men and a lot of them have attachment issues. So we need to remember that could be very biased, but some of them literally have no clue what they're supposed to do. If they're too sensitive, does that mean they're less masculine? If they're too assertive, is that too offensive? If they're taking the lead, is that the right thing, or is that too controlling? If they're waiting for signals, does that mean they're not making enough, initiation? So they're really unclear. And I think this is one of the most, I'm not a man, of course, but I can understand how frustrating this is. And a lot of my patients find this to be incredibly frustrating because they have truly no idea what are they supposed to do. It feels like they're walking on like a field where they don't know where the mines are underneath. What is it called? Minesweeper? I don't know. Do you remember that game where you're like walking and then like you step on something, or like you're clicking and then like a bomb just goes off? Something like that. Really bad example. I apologize for that. But it feels so ambiguous. Where do I step? What do I do? What goes, like, where is this supposed to go? And very similar, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but again, I hear this a lot in session. I don't have any research attached to this one, but I just really feel like it's important. I think it's important, and I'm not saying this is wrong or right, but it is kind of confusing. I guess it's called, like, nowadays online, it's called like consent culture. And I'm not saying that's wrong or right. I really am not saying that. It's good to have consent, but what I'm saying is, that's a right thing to have consent, so please don't take my word and run with it. But I think a lot of men are afraid of being misunderstood or being seen as creepy just for showing interest. And so that's scary, right? As a man, it's really hard to imagine your life can be just drained in a second just because someone mistakes your interest, your natural interest, right? Biologically, psychologically, but people can take that wrong, and that can be really scary. So some men might actually feel like, I'd rather stay out of the dating game because this is kind of frightening. And so I do understand that. And I'm just making this video to educate. I know a lot of people, for some reason, these particular types of video, I get a lot of like very strange comments. Like, I have another channel that is quite a bit larger than this one. Not quite a bit, but it is larger. And I've never gotten the comments that I get on this one. So please just be mindful. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm just trying to help people. I'm not trying to get anything out of this. I make these videos in my free time. I'm happy to help people. I like doing this. I'm not trying to take advantage of anyone. I'm just trying to help, okay? So please, I hope that's understood. I hope that this video helps somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.